So welcome everyone, very good evening. This is a very special occasion, especially because I'm here to support friends and I'm talking from both the sides. Most of the people who have been invited are known to me, dear to me, and of course business world is known to me for more than a decade. Anurag has been a supporter and of course he understands the cause for which we are the torch bearers. And coming to the reel we just saw, each one of you have a pass. Anurag, I'm taking the liberty to invite them for tomorrow's event. He's not promoting it commercially. He genuinely means this for all of us, and all of you are invited to be a part of tomorrow's event. So without further ado, I am Kriti Sharma, Director Dun & Bradstreet, India and Southeast Asia, and Data Protection Officer for India and Southeast Asia, registered in Singapore as well. I have a wonderful set of panelists and almost 45 minutes. So without delaying any further, the topic of the conversation is the AI Privacy Nexus, governing data in the age of intelligent machines. We have a very diverse set of people, and my question to Ibrahim, I would like to start with you, is how do you see the whole agenda of artificial intelligence in light of the recent Digital Personal Data Protection Act and the rules which are to be notified?
Algorithmic assessments, right, which is pretty unique in the Indian DPDP compared to the other regulations such as GDPR and what have you. And it actually talks about anything that basically harms the data principles, right, their rights and freedom. That's basically more than a privacy violation, right? So there has to be, and that's mostly for like significant data fiduciaries. I'll just explain what significant data fiduciaries are. Significant data fiduciaries are organizations that are actually going to be notified by the Data Protection Board, but those are organizations most likely that collect sensitive data. Though sensitive data is not defined in DPDP, but large volumes of data, right? So these organizations, and I'll give you my own personal use case working with some insurance companies, right, and how they actually underwrite the insurance policies, right, and how, what risk they have, who gets rejected and who doesn't get rejected, how those models actually work. The model risk assessment, right, if I may call it, and the data lineage all come together for a AI governance ecosystem.
That makes sense. I will be talking about and asking you more regarding the risks which you have experienced, but coming to Anand, and we lovingly call you AK. So, AK, my question is, when an AI system denies a loan or rejects a job application because of how it has learned from the data, who is truly responsible according to you, the deployer, the developer, or the employer?
Okay. First of all, thanks to Business World for having me here. And thanks, Kriti, for introducing me to this forum. Who takes responsibility, right? Does
absolutely, yes. Liability, in a way.
No one takes it easily, right? Unless you define responsibility upfront and then blame them, they will take it. So it's all about, finding scapegoat after things happen. Sorry, it won't happen, right? So whenever you have an AI, right, it's important to understand who are the different players involved. So you have a deployer, you have a developer, and you have a victim, right? These are the three players. Victim obviously are the end customers. So if I were to define a deployer, right, who's a deployer? Now, any entity, right, which uses a third-party AI solution and deploys it, right? You have a third party who is the owner of that AI, and the deployer is the company that is using it. So they do it first. Then the developer, right? Developers might fine-tune that model when they are training that model for in-house kind of deployment. That is where, if the responsibility of fine-tuning the model to that organization is not assigned to the developer, they go scot-free, right? And most organizations A real life example is this, right? I mean, AI is very fancy now. It's like designing a Ferrari car, right? But brake can't be an afterthought. Brake has to be built along with the car. And once the car starts moving, you can't put in a brake, right? Because what that means is you have to stop the car, which means there are many banks, I don't want to name the banks, but they've gone into an embargo because they didn't have proper structures in place, right? And regulators don't give you a chance कि ठीक है आप करते जाओ धंधा साइड में करो नहीं धंधा बंद करेंगे पहले, right? So that's the thing, and which is where I think having a proper responsibility matrix defined for any AI implementation, for any data governance related stuff, for ownership of the data, these are all very important. And loans is a very touchy topic, right? Because the normal personal loans of individuals is a small ticket item, but the big loans, who's even taking a decision?
So what is your pre-deployment strategy in such scenarios?
So if I were to talk about a pre-deployment strategy, the first thing is to have some kind of a guardrail, right? Some kind of high-level policy which you want to implement in your organization, right? And it has to have all the components of, say, currently we don't have an AI law in India, right? But we do have a framework called Free AI report given by RBI. Niti Aayog is doing some work around it. RBI also is kind of asking some questions in the thematic studies questionnaires that they send. And EU Act is anyway there. So we will have to have a stand as an organization, right? What is it that we want to do? Yeah. Because AI again can be a boon, can be a bane, right? So people are jumping onto the band because they have this Gen Z thing, right? FOMO, fear of missing out. But I would say maybe people who don't jump on might have ROMO, which is relief on missing out, or JOMO, right? Joy on missing out, because they're not jumping on it blindfold, right? So strategy is to understand how are we going to assess any implementation, whether it is going to be return on investment based, whether it is going to be any other factor, but that has to be predefined before AI is implemented. And once it is implemented, you have to measure it back, and you should have strategy to roll back, because rolling back is a challenge in AI. Once it learns, AI never unlearns, right? So that's a big challenge.
Right. Thank you, Ike. Prashant, this one is for you, and we want your practical observations and insights as far as how you foresee regulators seeing AI, and then the level at which it can control the kind of challenges which we have. And also the hackers are smarter as well, right? And this is no more just about compliance. This is also about competitiveness. We are not just following standards, we are also steering ahead. Everybody who's sitting here is a stalwart, and as most of us say, and this is AK's favorite statement too, we are the torch bearers and probably the first set of data protection officers present here at this very special moment. So how do you foresee this?
Let's say bakras. Not torch bearers, bakras.
Yeah. Same difference.
You have chosen to be a bakra. So you can't say we are bakras, you know.
You happen to be one of the most popular person on LinkedIn. Like you're one of the go-to profiles when we have to check the updates on this subject.
Thank you.
Do you know that?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So let me update on what is next. See, Government of India is very proactive, and when it comes to AI, and why it is proactive, in my earlier session also I had commented that it has brought in AI rules the moment there was problems with deepfakes, and there are problems with synthetic data. So now we have, apart from this Niti Aayog, etc., roadmap, those are not actually, they are not regulations. You know, we may follow it at our whim. You know, if we want, we want. But IT rules, that is the IT Digital Media Ethics Code and Intermediary Rules, this is the exact name what I'm saying, 2025 is now somewhat legality we brought into the AI. So we have there, what we are trying to define is what is synthetic data, and what happens if, how do we label it? So for corporates, you need to label those if you are producing synthetic data. You need to add labels, metadata to it. So now you all have to think from that angle. When you're adding metadata, skiff, and things to it, what is the cost? Second is, if you're not doing it right, then what is the cost? Because that is the legal risk. So this has to be inbuilt in the new happenings, what we are trying to do. Second is obviously training the new people. Now the best training, now what we do is everybody, if you look at your LinkedIn post, simple as LinkedIn post, 90% is synthetic data, okay? And if you look at presentations, synthetic data. So everything is synthetic, and the same synthetic data would be taken, and a new AI which New India is trying to build will be built on the same synthetic data. So that is going to be a problem, that is going to be an issue, because it will subsume the culture of our country. Because it's not only our country, it's across the world. It will be AI thoughts in the cyberspace. It will be AI thoughts governing our thoughts. So, we will be slaves, our thoughts would be slaves to what
We
AI
already are, I think.
So what
the generations,
AI has
the
generated.
younger generations especially.
Yeah, so slowly, how to tackle this? So it is not only regulations which we would like, but see, now the problem with regulation is, now you all want AI regulation should be there. But have we ever thought when AI regulations come, what are we going to do? How are we prepared? What is my budget to handle AI regulations? One, DPDPA is coming. It's not still there, but it's coming from many ages. Yet we are not prepared. There's fighting about budgets. There are, we don't know where our data is. There could be some data in some accounts department which we really don't know, we're not accounted for. And then there are so much hidden data which we are not accounted for. And the AI generated data. So, two types of data DPDP is not catering to. One is your generic synthetic data, and other is your inference data. Would not synthetic data or inference data be a personal data? It could be, yes. In fact, it can malign you in the worst format when a narrative is created out of this. So, is regulation looking at it? No.
Right.
Okay, so culturally we are not looking at it. So these are so many issues. Our brains need to start thinking and approaching a problem or a legal compliance differently in the age of AI. That's what I feel right now. Thank you for asking me that.
Thank you, Prashant. I think there is a very important aspect which you spoke about, budgets. That's something business generally shies away from, especially because compliance, being a business function, has that kind of challenges. And I will ask more on this to you, but coming to Sushil sir, my question is, how have you seen the whole growth, given that you come from such a legacy brand, which is BSE? How was the reaction, the response of this kind of disruption in India, in the technology space, or the globe, I must say?
So, I think, first of all, the growth in the stock market, thanks to people, all of you guys are started trading. People who are not trading, they have entered the stock market. And be it any, rickshaw wala, auto wala, or driver, they're into a stock market, right? Everybody wants to, invest and have a quick money. But, and the growth has been tremendous, and it is growing with new products, the government initiatives making it easy to trade, all those initiatives, right? And at the same time, the safeguard of the investors is equally important, and also the risk factors that entails. So, of course, the volume of growth, the data growth and the volume is there now. So many crores of demat accounts, large volume of data being collected, and we have that. So now that's a quick background, and then yes, with respect to AI, Gen AI or data related things, we are very excited and we are experimenting, and but we need to being in a regulator environment, we need to ensure that the data is secure, the data is protected, the data, there's a trust and safeguards very at all the guardrails are there with respect to SEBI security guidelines, with respect to technology related, guardrails with respect to CSR with respect to guidelines and all that. Okay, and with that is the first pillar that comes in mind, and then deciding on how do you start our journey. So we have started our journey, we are experimenting it, and also we have to ensure that there is continuous monitoring of any use cases, ensuring that all those SOPs are in place, bombs are in place, continuous vulnerabilities are being monitored, deployment, continuous fixes of those vulnerabilities. Then how is the model performance, how is it drifting, is it not performing? So all those needs to be controlled and monitored continuously, so that incorrect decision is not taken. So in our case, if any incorrect decision, we want to ensure that that doesn't happen, right? Because
Right.
to us, our customers are very important. Our customers are like members, brokers, community, right? So in our thing, we ensure that the humans are involved, just not machine or anything, but humans are tightly integrated, and
So,
it's both human
yeah.
and the machine work together, and we experiment it, we learn it, and then that's how we are planning our journey. I mean, and also learning.
Do you trust the deployment of AI?
So see, being a regulator, we need to be sure that the models are building on what data. So we don't we ensure first thing that not we don't have any sensitive or PI data, competitive data going into it. So we try to start with use case. So recently you may have seen that we have launched SME DRHPI. It is about a document, is a public document, and how we can speed up the decision making, which my internal team which to take weeks, has come down to days. So with respect to 100, AI cannot be 100% right? But you need to have a benchmark and a marker that what is accuracy, what accuracy level is acceptable before even starting the project, and whether that AI solution can generate the required level of output and the outcome that is needed. And then we need to continuously understand that, okay, in phase one, what is the expected accuracy, then later on expected what is that. So continuous evaluation, and the moment we see that if the output is not expected, we need to quickly investigate why is that happening.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for confirming your thoughts. And the next question I'll ask you is the challenges you think and the fears which you have, the nightmares which you get as a professional.
See, I think any small incident can cause a lot of damage to and risk and reputational damage or whatever that be. So safeguarding it, any kind of risk, or I think is paramount important.
Right.
And just not for, I think, not for our industry, but any financial services, be it banking or insurance, that is there. So I think, but yes, we know that there it will be a scenario where, but how do you ensure that those are mitigated? So with, I think, more of culture awareness, more of training and learning initiatives around that. How do you safeguard? How do you protect the data? How do you use it? Where to use it? So all those, I think, initiative needs to be taken and roll out and see, and it's a continuous journey.
Thank you. So I have a question for all of you, and you can take it as per your perception and experience. There have been so much noise around data breach. There has been so much noise about data leakage, especially with ChatGPT, the prompts used for assessing transactional data or financial data, if not PII. How do you deal with it, and how much do you trust vendors? So internally, how do you deal with AI deployment? And externally, how do you advise clients? So when I speak to in-house counsels and DPOs here, how do you deal with stakeholders to assure that they make sure that there's proper due diligence? However, I personally think due diligence is not enough. There has to be a separate AI checklist altogether, which is in consonance with how the global leaders and policies and standards think and perceive AI to be, because we are still at a stage where there's a lot to be implemented. Ibrahim.
I think you've asked a question that's a little forward, right? I mean, I think especially in India right now, where you look at vendor risk assessment, right? I'm going to talk very basic stuff.
Yes,
Organizations have, large organizations that we are working with, and what I've seen have no kind of vendor risk management. I mean, they have no visibility on what data is actually going out, right? So if data is actually getting breached, they wouldn't know, right? They don't even know if the data is being used for the purposes that they have actually given the data for, if there are certain kind of agreements that they have with the data processors, right? And if they are deleting the data after the use is over, there's no monitoring of that, right? I mean, these are, they don't even know that if there is certain kind of basic controls like ISO 27001, what have you, right? This exercise is just kind of starting. And a lot of organizations, I think, are sitting right at the brim. They are waiting for the DPDP to get notified, right? Because unless and until it doesn't get notified, they really
They're
don't
waiting,
want to do.
yes.
They really don't want to invest like.
It's
how
like a
Prashant
ticking
said,
time
They really
bomb.
don't want to
Yeah.
invest the budget, right? They want to go. Practically, what I'm really seeing is like large banks and large organizations, right? I mean, they're still managing everything on Excel, right? And it's impossible, right, to basically manage a whole governance program to actually know where breach has happened. It's practically impossible, right? So from a vendor perspective, you really need to do as you said, vendor due diligence is not enough, but that's like a starting point, right, for if a breach happens. So then you can actually then comply with the regulations such as notifying the regulator and the consumers the stipulated time, 6 hours for certain and 72 hours for DPDP. Actually, as soon as you basically get, you realize there's been a breach that you need to notify, but you really need to have control over your data. But organizations, forget about sending data to vendors. They actually don't know what data they actually really have, right? So the data discovery exercise also, even if you don't use like a sophisticated tool, they just don't know what data. I mean, the data mapping exercise really hasn't really started yet, right? So all the basics are really important to basically, act upon a data breach when it actually happens.
Yeah, in fact, so AK, just taking 30 seconds here, to give you an example, the vendors who we engaged to, initially, they would not even bother to disclose that they were using AI until we asked, because we thought that there is a possibility of the same, because we know how business works. And at the end of the day, the third-party service providers would not be liable for the indemnity. There's no spillover, right? We don't yet have complete clarity on joint liability. So if we are the fiduciaries, it's our responsibility to make sure that the service providers have the right kind of credibility to engage with our data for processing activities. So AK, over to you on how you perceive this internally and as far as engaging with vendors is concerned.
I think the work has to start internally first, right? Before you put the blame on vendors, what's important is to understand what data you're sitting on, right? Most organizations have no way to segregate the data in different forms. When I say segregate, there's a raw data that you collect, then you enrich the data using a lot of internal kind of enrichment frameworks or whatever, and you also enrich the data by getting external party data, right? You get third party vendor data to enrich your own customer base to be able to service them, right? So in this case, what happens is when you lose contextualization of this data across the different life stages of the data, you lose your way. What data is going and feeding into your AI, no one knows. And AI is like a mirror, right? You feed in cracked data, it shows a cracked image, right? It's garbage in, garbage out. But who determines whether it is garbage? We don't even know today, right? Do we have any data quality management system? I doubt if any of the organizations in India do it, right? I mean, basic traits of a data quality are accuracy, validity, and completeness, right? So these are the basic dimensions. And for example, when I was working in Hong Kong, we did a data quality check on the date of birth of the 5 million customers that were there in the bank. Interestingly, 23% of the customer base was born on 1st of January. Is the data accurate? Complete?
We don't know.
Valid? These are the 3 dimensions. It is complete. 1st of January is a valid date. It is not like 30th of February, right?
Yeah.
But is it accurate? Is it verifiable?
The possibility of bias.
Because, yeah, what happens is most of the people were old, and in those days they didn't remember their date of birth. Easy date to remember is 1st of January, right? So do we do checks like that on the critical data that we sit on, which is used for, say, regulatory reporting, which is used for modeling, which is used for, driving business decisions? We don't, right? Once you have that contextualization, then comes, if that data is being shared with third-party vendors, you need to figure out ways to share the bare minimal data to get that service. There are a lot of privacy-enhancing technologies which will anonymize, pseudonymize data, mask it, hash it, whatever, right? There are ways to ensure that what you are sharing is used only for the purpose that you want, and beyond that they should not be able to use for any other purpose. And classic example is your Ubers, Swiggies, Olas, these cabs, they don't get your mobile number, right? There's a firewall behind which the drivers sit and they don't know your numbers, right? Unless they have an alternate way to get that through you, right? So we'll have to think that, and my take is very simple. Get your house in order. So every organization should start investing a lot in understanding their data, have a proper data governance to start with. On top of it, a part of privacy implementation will be governance, in data governance, and only when you have a proper data governance, you can do an AI governance. That's my take.
So how do you perceive undertaking DPIAs, or do you have a go-to framework, like probably privacy by design, which we all follow? Somewhere or the other, we structure how our business should map the data and deal with it from collection till deletion.
Sorry, I didn't get the full.
So what is your go-to solution? Like, do you undertake
my go-to
DPIs? What is the framework which
So I think
you rely on?
I think a lot of emphasis is being given on DPDPA because it has got a lot of PR value and government is also pushing it. But we forget that there are 13 other regulations in the country which talk about a data risk. No one even talks about that. They've been there, right? So if you look at data risk, right, there are 12 data risk themes, which means key data risk areas. And in each of those areas, there are key risk indicators. There are about 80 key risk indicators for data risk. And I haven't seen any organization measure more than 4 of them. Data privacy happens to be one of them. Cybersecurity is another one. There are vendor management risks in that. There are, lineage risks in that. There are quality risks in that. So all that has to be brought to the board, to their notice, saying that today you are going scot-free because you don't even acknowledge that this exists. But if tomorrow regulators come, right, what are you going to be answering?
Yeah.
Even forget about the regulators, right? We all keep saying data is the new oil, data is money, gold. I say data is plastic, it never gets destroyed. So please handle it safely, right?
Yeah.
Destruction of data is impossible. Any digital footprint is never lost. It can be misused, right? Which is where you understanding the data, ensuring that you are using PETs to safeguard it, safe it, in a proper, secure way, that is important. right? So people, I mean, organizations will have to take a few steps back and work backwards, right? Because that's my take.
Thank you, AK. So Prashant, I would just cut the long question short. I want to know from your perspective, as uh, Anand rightly said, that data never dies. Like, you cannot destroy it, but we do have purging provisions, and there is a limit to retaining and storing the data. So what is your go-to advice to a client when they come to you saying that we are engaging with a third-party vendor and there is a possibility of AI usage?
First of all, I feel all organizations should revisit their vendor agreements and check for this AI usage clause, and which is an exercise which has to be done immaterial or not considering even DPDPA. This has to be done as it is as of yesterday. So second is the indemnification clause. Since you're talking about indemnification clause, you have in your agreements is limited to the amount of money you are paying to the vendor for 1 year. So that is the amount of loss they try to take it. So what happens to the residual loss? That never gets calculated as a legal risk in various organizations. So even that residual risk, legal risk, should be decided somewhere, and that could be a board meeting point. What happens to the residual risk when it comes to cyber? Because many a times it doesn't get covered in even your cyber insurance. So what to do? So that needs to be a board point over there.
Have you seen boards being able to decipher the quantum of risk or penalties? Have you had the opportunity to witness it in this lifetime yet?
Yeah. Boards, see some serious boards with regulators sitting on their head, they always decipher this kind of risk. But
including the ripple effect, including the spillover, including the spillover.
Including the spillover. Okay, so there are financial organizations which need to do this. So there is no option to it. So one is to do this, to look at the agreements and the clauses on how do you protect. And your question about the data breach point of view.
Yes.
See, for data breach, it is not only the DPDPA. So you have section 43 small b read with 66. It gives you criminal liability, for a person who breaches database. Then in our practice, we go to the high courts and we take injunction orders so data shouldn't spread or data shouldn't be given further. So even if DPDPA is not there, we were practicing data breaches, and how data breaches were handled in courts. And it has two connotations. One is of criminal way, where the breach, there is an FIR, he needs to take bail, etc. And then we go to the high courts, take injunctions so that it doesn't spread, and we file a compensation suit on him. So, and the limit is, in the IT Act is, there is no limit. Yes. So initially it was 5 crores, there is no limit. So it is still existing. So apart with DPDPA, these all parallel sections are going to exist, and you need to take care of this. Right. So even DPDPA is civil, there are criminal liabilities, and that everybody, every CISO, every DPO should not be aware. It is not like GDPR. You pay the fine and it's done. It's India, so be doubly aware.
Yes, very well. Thank you. And Sushil, for you again, so the only question I want you to enlighten us with your response is the kind of challenge. As I said, it's a legacy coming from years of trust of the customers and their loyalty. So how do you perceive the whole artificial intelligence deployment in this sector? And are you deploying artificial intelligence yet? Have you done that yet?
So the regulators or no one wants to stop anyone from deploying AI use cases, okay? And we are experimenting, okay? But at the same time, what is important is what the other panel members said is the guardrails, the risk, how the guardrails if there are any data breaches, okay, if happens, then you should be prepared how to handle, how to respond, right? Then the trust on the output, the user acceptance is very important, right? So rather than trying out 100 different things or use cases, the suggestion would be to start with a small use case, okay? Experiment it, evangelize it, implement it, because that understanding and the confidence need to be built up, okay? And in that process, you will learn a lot of things, okay? Because the vendors are involved, the technology team is involved, the security teams are involved, the business, the functions are involved. So all those inputs will keep on bombarding, right? But you have to consume and see how do you take a coordinated decision and ensure that everyone is answered, their queries, whatever the risk challenges they say. So there is no, as I said, just to summarize, there is no stoppage, but at the same time, you need to be aware and you need to have, sufficient guardrails
Right.
in place. There's a paramount.
Thank
So you
you.
have to look at the risk versus benefit.
Right.
अगर हम एक use case करने वाले हैं, what is my risk and what is my outcome going to be? If my outcome is going to be just 1 or 2% when I'm going to do it, then you need to see that needs to be done. And as I said, we are more on on-prem,
Right.
right? So, but yeah, so each of the organizations, and I think have to plan and also collaborate, learnings from other implementation and companies helps.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sushil. I think the time is up, and I think we can keep discussing this, and this can go on and on, but given that we are out of time, I would like to thank everybody who could make time, and thank you, panelists.